All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into the world of Lex Fridman.
Sounds good.
We've got this profile on him, and it paints him as, well, something more than just your average tech enthusiast.
Definitely.
AI, space exploration, you name it.
Yeah,
He seems to cover it all, even like philosophy and what it means to be human.
right.
So I guess first things first, who is Lex Fridman? Like, beyond the podcast, who are we dealing with here?
He's got, well, a pretty impressive resume. Born in Russia, raised in the U.S., PhD from MIT, so obviously a bright guy.
Uh-huh.
But what's really interesting is his expertise isn't just limited to the technical stuff.
Oh,
Like,
right.
yeah, he's deep into autonomous vehicles, machine learning, all that.
Okay.
But you can tell he's also constantly thinking about, like, the bigger implications of those technologies.
It's not just about the how, it's about the why.
Exactly.
He's not just building the future, he's trying to understand, like, the soul of it.
Yeah.
All right, so then how does the podcast itself actually fit into all of this?
I think it acts as a kind of window into his mind. You know, it's not just your typical interview format. These are deep, almost philosophical conversations. And he's got some seriously bright guests on.
Like, who are we talking about here?
AI pioneers, astronauts, philosophers, even like top athletes. It's really diverse.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what kind of topics does he actually get into with them?
Well, it really runs the gamut. I mean, one day it could be dissecting the risks of superintelligent AI. The next, they could be pondering humanity's future among the stars, or even exploring, like, what consciousness even It's all over the place, really. But the source really highlights his, like, genuine curiosity.
Sure.
And there's this humility that allows him to really listen to his guests.
Yeah, that's refreshing, right?
Totally.
It's not like those shouty debates you see everywhere. Feels like he's actually trying to, understand.
Exactly. It's not about winning the argument.
Yep.
It's more about fostering dialogue, exploring ideas. And you can feel that authenticity.
Yeah, that's what I like too.
Yeah.
Not just about the facts, but the why, the connections, the bigger picture. And speaking of which, the source mentions he's having an impact beyond just the podcast. What do they mean by that?
So they outline 3 key areas where he's really making waves. First, he's promoting what they call interdisciplinary knowledge, basically breaking down those silos between tech and philosophy, science, and art, showing how seemingly separate fields can actually inform each other.
Yeah, that appeals to me too. I mean, the world's become so specialized, it's easy to get stuck in your lane and miss those connections.
Exactly. He's showing the power of a more holistic perspective. But that's just one aspect. The next one is especially important right now.
Okay, I'm all ears.
He's a big advocate for, like, ethical considerations in AI development.
Makes sense.
As AI gets more and more sophisticated, he's constantly raising questions about responsible use, the potential risks, the unintended consequences.
Right, so it's not just about how cool the tech is, it's about using it wisely.
Absolutely. He's challenging his guests, his listeners, everyone to think critically about the future we're building with these tools. And then finally, the source emphasizes how he always brings things back to that human element. Even when talking about crazy futuristic technology, he reminds us that it's our values, our relationships, our empathy that truly matter.
I see that. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of all this innovation and forget about being better humans, not just building smarter machines.
Exactly. And that's what makes his work so compelling. It's intellectual, but also deeply, well, human.
So we've got Lex Fridman, clearly a brilliant mind with a huge platform, and he's advocating for some really important things. But is all this just happening online? Or is there evidence that he's actually having a real-world impact?
That's where things get even more interesting, and that's something we should explore in the next part of our deep dive. The source makes it clear that his influence goes way beyond just being like a popular podcaster.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting that feeling too. What kind of evidence do we have for this, real-world impact?
Well, he's having an impact on these crucial conversations about AI development, climate change, even the future of space exploration. These are like the defining issues of our time, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. But why should I care,
Yeah.
I'm not directly involved in those fields. Why does it matter what's being talked about at those, high levels?
That's a good question, and I think it gets to the heart of why Fridman's work is so important. It's about understanding how these issues are being framed, what the main arguments are, the potential solutions being proposed, that knowledge is valuable no matter what field you're in.
It's like having a backstage pass to where the future is being shaped.
Exactly. It gives you a different perspective, a deeper understanding of how things work, and who knows, maybe it'll even inspire you to get involved somehow. But beyond the global impact, there's also a personal aspect to consider.
Okay, you've got my attention.
Think about how Fridman approaches these conversations. He's constantly asking questions, looking for different perspectives, encouraging critical thinking. That's a skill set that goes way beyond any specific topic.
So it's not just about the content itself, but the way he engages with it, the mental model he's demonstrating.
Exactly. It's about developing that mindset of curiosity, being open-minded, being willing to deal with complexity. Those are valuable tools for anything, really.
Yeah, totally. But I got to be honest, a part of me wonders if it's all a bit too good to be true, you know? Is there any reason to be skeptical of his motives or his approach?
Well, it's always good to be cautious, especially when someone becomes as popular as he has. But I think if you look closely at the content of his conversations, the depth of thought, the genuine desire to understand, it's hard to dismiss it as just hype.
So how do we reconcile the global impact with the personal one? How does he manage to connect with both experts and everyday people like me?
It's a really interesting balance he strikes. I mean, he's clearly brilliant, but he never talks down to his audience. He explains complex things in a way that makes sense even if you don't have a super technical background. And most importantly, he's just genuinely curious, eager to learn from his guests, no matter who they are.
That humility is definitely something I've noticed. It creates a space where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, even if they're, challenging the norm.
Yeah, I think that's a key part of his impact. He's not just presenting information. He's creating a platform for real dialogue, for different points of view, and that's where real progress happens.
So he's a scientist, a philosopher, a skilled interviewer, a bridge builder between experts and the public. That's quite a combination. But honestly, I'm still trying to figure out what it all means for me personally. What can I actually do with this information?
That's the big question, isn't it? And there are a few layers to the answer. First, just being aware of these conversations, these big ideas that are shaping the world. That's a valuable starting point. It helps us understand all the changes happening around us.
Okay, so knowledge is power, even if we don't know exactly how we'll use it yet.
Right. But it's more than just being informed. These conversations can inspire us to think differently, to question things, and maybe even get involved in shaping the future in our own way.
Yeah.
Maybe we start asking different questions in our own work or have more thoughtful conversations with our friends and family.
It's about becoming active participants, not just passive observers.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe listening to Fridman will spark a new passion, a project, or even a career shift we never considered before. But beyond the practical applications, there's a deeper, almost philosophical takeaway here.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Fridman reminds us that even with all this crazy technological advancement, it's the human element that really matters. Our values, relationships, empathy, those are the things that define us.
Yeah, that's a powerful message, especially when we're constantly bombarded with information and technology. But it's not always easy to connect those big ideas to our everyday lives,
True. But maybe that's the challenge Fridman is giving us. How can we take these insights about AI, space exploration, philosophy, and apply them to our own lives, our relationships, our communities?
It's like he's giving us the puzzle pieces, but we have to figure out how they fit together.
Exactly. And that's where the real work begins. But I think we've covered a lot of ground here. Maybe it's time to think about what the future holds for Lex Fridman himself and how his influence might continue to grow. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm ready to try and peek into the future and see what we can learn. So let's try and look ahead a bit. What do we think the future holds for Lex Fridman?
Well, predicting the future is never easy, right?
Yeah, especially with someone like him. Always pushing boundaries, evolving.
Right. But if we look at where his work has been going, there are some interesting possibilities.
Okay, lay some of those possibilities on me.
One thing that seems pretty clear is that his influence in, the whole AI conversation is only going to grow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's already got a massive audience.
Wow.
And as AI becomes even more powerful, those ethical questions he keeps bringing up, well, they're going to be even more important.
Yeah, he's not shying away from those tough conversations.
Exactly.
And we're going to need those voices more than ever as we, navigate this whole new world.
He's got this unique skill set, bringing together all those different viewpoints from tech, philosophy, ethics. He's not just talking about the tech itself, but the human impact, the risks, the philosophical stuff.
Right.
All of that's going to be so crucial as we figure out the future of AI.
So you're saying we can expect him to keep pushing those boundaries, maybe ruffle some feathers along the way?
Oh, I wouldn't bet against it. He's not afraid to ask the tough questions. And that intellectual honesty is, well, It's essential,
Mhm.
especially when we're dealing with something as powerful as AI.
Absolutely. But it's not all about AI, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the source also talked about his interest in space exploration, climate change, all those other huge issues.
Yeah. It's like he's seeing these connections between things that seem totally different.
It's a big picture view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's shown us how tech, philosophy, even art, they can all play a part in understanding these complex challenges.
Mm.
And I think that's where he'll continue to make a difference.
You mean bringing all those different voices and perspectives together?
Yeah, to find new and innovative solutions. It's not about him having all the answers, but about him creating the space for those aha moments to happen.
It's like building a bridge between the experts and everyone else, helping us make sense of these complicated things.
Exactly. He's making these big ideas feel relevant, relatable.
And ultimately empowering.
Right. Because once we understand the challenges, then we can start to imagine the solutions, and we can see our own WN role in building a better future.
You know, it's interesting. We started this whole deep dive trying to figure out who Lex Fridman is, but the bigger question might be, who is he helping U.S. become?
That's a really good point. He's not just a thought leader. He's like this catalyst for growth, both personal and collective. By asking us to ask those tough questions, to consider different viewpoints, he's helping us evolve as individuals and as a society.
I really like that. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave our listener with one last thought. We've talked about Fridman's impact on the world, but what about his impact on you? What stood out to you the most from our conversation? What questions did it spark in your own mind? And most importantly, what are you going to do with those insights? Will you check out his podcast? Will you explore some of the ideas we've been discussing? Maybe even start asking those tough questions in your own life. The future isn't set in stone, and we all have a part in creating it. And maybe, just maybe, Lex Fridman can help us along the way.
Well said. It's been great exploring this with you. To our listener, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning.
And until next time, keep diving deep.